The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
This is Out of Order.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Blowout. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Well, good morning on a chilly Monday. No more daylight savings time for Blakey Blakeser. But it's a weird time of year. We drive in and it's sunshine. It's always odd doing this. Pitch black, dark, daylight. All right. Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, powered by Dancing Rabbit Golf Club and the super cool Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook, Pearl River Resort. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. And you can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BowBounds. And your text line is 601-885-3776. Love to hear your reaction, your thoughts on the weekend via the text line 601-885-3776. Brought to you by Ag Up Equipment, Mississippi Ag. Ag Up Equipment, agup.com. Manage your land with the John Deere tractor. From Ag Up Equipment, 2 locations in the metro area, Canton and Pearl. Hope you had a great weekend. We did. The weather was phenomenal. The football was wild, both on Saturday and Sunday. Had no idea we were going to get the crazy games that we got on Saturday night in the SEC. For some of you, Mississippi State fans, after taking a gut-wrenching, gut punch loss against Arkansas, you were cheering from your recliner as Dan Mullen was absolutely blown out by a terrible South Carolina Gamecocks team. And so I feel quite confident that although that didn't make it better, you thought that was pretty awesome. Dan Mullen fired Todd Grantham and John Hevesy yesterday. Hevesy's been with him for 20 years, Grantham for 5 or 6 now. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we'll hit it on the big board and some other spots.
They got Muschamped.
And so, yeah, I mean, when you make Shane Beamer look like Sean McVay, or we'll take it local. Some of you don't know who Sean Payton. When you make Shane Beamer in South Carolina look like Sean Payton, well, that could be a problem.
Somebody got to get fired.
Somebody's got to get fired. Somebody had to walk the plank, as we talk about fair or unfair. But so his good friend John Hevesy is gone, and then you knew that Grantham was gone. You weren't sure when, but Dan Mullen making some special changes down in Gainesville. The Ole Miss Liberty game was boring. So Ole Miss won. We thought they would. They covered. Well, they covered if you didn't get it right out of the gate. But if you danced in that 9 to 10 range all week after starting off at 15.5, if you took it at 15.5, anyway. But Ole Miss covered and Mississippi State covered. The Ole Miss Liberty game was boring. One thing that I think I missed on last week was how little, zero, the players cared about Hugh Freeze coming back to Oxford. He was such a big part of our show for so long, and, polarizing, popular, successful, scandal. There were so many things going on. And look, I had someone just 2 years in say, Bo, it's a house of cards. Long before, this was 2013, long before the whole thing played out. But the bottom line is the players didn't care.
It's been 5 years.
They don't know him. They don't care anything about him. Those 18 and 22-year-olds didn't care who the head coach was at Liberty. But Ole Miss did what they need to do. They kind of went through the motions. They won. Now, and by the way, game day coming to Oxford is huge. Hosting A&M, big, 6 o'clock night game. There'll be a lot of juice, a lot of bourbon, a lot of electricity, a lot of excitement, and we'll get into that. We'll have 15 hours this week, and how many is that total, Blake? 45 segments or something?
Yeah.
To get into that and Reese Davis and Herb Street and all that. Now, Mississippi State lost a heartbreaker to Arkansas. Arkansas was a 5.5-point favorite, as I said on Thursday and Friday. They should have been. But I want to talk a little bit about what I said in August. And I know I'm not right often, but in August I made the statement, Blake, that Mississippi State did not have a difference maker on either side of the football, and I got torched on the message boards. And obviously, if you watch Saturday's game, it was evident that they don't. Now, is Will Rogers going to be a phenomenal college QB? Yeah. Got a chance to be special, all that. But if you look at your offensive and defensive personnel, and you're playing a team like Arkansas where the talent's even, so then you look at what's next. Well, what was next? The team with the best player on the field won. Traylon Burks, wide receiver for Arkansas. Did you notice how much time, effort, energy, and investment Mississippi State's defense put on him? So what did that tell you all week? I mean, if there's coaches listening right now, they know. There was an emphasis put on what he was and where he was all week. I mean, all week, every 10 minutes in practice, Zach Arnett was talking about him. Flip side, Mississippi State, Barry Odom. You don't have a player that you have to prepare for all week. You got some nice players. You've got an offense that's moving in the right direction, no question. I just said you got a QB who has a chance to be a college star and is going to shatter records if he stays healthy. But who did Barry Odom have to invest in that staff when they were in film, digital, cut-up sessions? Who did they have to invest a lot of time on? They didn't. Mekhi Polk's a nice player. Austin Williams is a nice player. I mean, Jaden Wiley's here or there. It looks like he could be a good player, but he's disappeared. Woody Marks is a nice player. Dylan Johnson's a nice player. But who tilted the field? I mean, it's that simple. When the talent's even, tell me who the best player is on the field. Traylon Burks, 6'3", 225 pounds, wide receiver / running back or whatever you want to make him, was the best player on the field. And Arnett and that defense spent a lot of time focusing on him, investing time in him. And that's what you got to have at Mississippi State. Now, could Ra Thomas be that guy? He could be. He could be. He's not right now, though. We're talking about now, this week, and so on. So it was more than evident and obvious that and then on the defensive line, defensive side of the football, I mean, your best player, I guess, is Emmanuel Forbes. Whatever. You can maybe take 3 or 4 players, but with no pass rush, no edge rushers, and no push on the D-line, did you ever make KJ Jefferson uncomfortable? You did.
Not once.
Got to go get some players. We're live at the BankPlus Studio. Tom Luganbill will join us at 8:30. National College Football Analyst with ESPN. How about that LSU-Bama game? Thought Bama would win by 30+. 20-14. Crazy what's going on in the world of college football. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, is powered by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Want to say good morning, welcome in on a Max Effort Monday. Let's have some fun over the next 3 hours.
Go Hogs. Yes, sir.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by Breezy Oaks Ranch. For Mississippi-raised premium Wagyu beef and heritage pork shipped straight to your door, visit breezyoaksranch.com.
The Big Board. What's on the Big Board?
What is on the big board? Ole Miss will host College Game Day this weekend and the Texas A&M Aggies. Ole Miss coming off a win against Liberty and the Fighting Hugh Freezes. Freeze got a little emotional in his press conference on Saturday. Ole Miss football account got a little ahead of themselves. Woo, that was a bad look. That was a bad. I bet Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce. You know, you got a lot of momentum in the program. You're 7-2. Later that evening, you find out you get in game day. Unless you totally drop the ball, you're going to a really, really good bowl game. I don't know what that means now, but again, people are excited again in the program. Who did that, Blake? I mean, was that a salaried employee?
Ooh.
Woo!
Somebody.
Not sure they're still employed. They may be. It may still be, dicey. Or was that some kind of GA intern? I don't know how many people have their fingerprints on the Ole Miss FB Twitter account, but
it just got locked down, I'll tell you that much.
I could not believe somebody went that petulant.
Yeah,
I get how snarky Twitter is, and I get how snarky we are as humans, and that Twitter has kind of allowed us to look in the mirror along with other social media platforms. But when I saw that on Saturday, I guess, afternoon, holy Mary Olzab, Blake.
There's a code of decorum, though, on Twitter where it's like...
With official account. Well, people with 297 followers
you can do whatever
say
you want.
Whatever they want.
Yeah.
They can tell Hugh Freeze, blah, 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 expletive.
But when you're a brand account, especially when you're the brand that won, so to speak, in this type of competitive market,
you beat a team that doesn't recruit in the top 100.
Yeah, it's not like beating A&M, LSU, Alabama. Like, you beat Alabama, and Hugh Freeze is the head coach of Alabama. Maybe you can take some shots,
right?
But it's not. It's just not quite the same, and so it really had the look of like the 9th grader beats up a 4th grader and then like brags about it. And you're like, all right, bro, like sweet. You're 150 pounds bigger. And also that kid's not developed.
Right.
So like what, I don't know what we're bragging about here. Like it just was bad.
Here's one of them. If you have complaints about this result, send it to lufootball@liberty.edu. If not, please do not slander these young men or insult their family.
I mean, it's funny.
And then a picture of the score, 27-14, Rebs win. And then another one was won the day with that thumbs up emoji. And they took a shot of Freeze in the press box in a hospital bed when he was at Liberty, I think 2 years ago, and he had some kind of surgery.
Staph infection.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember.
Man, that one was personal. That one felt more personal.
Oh, it was, and by the way, this was totally premeditated. I mean, this was something
they fired off
that had been thought about for either 24 hours, 3 days, 4 days a week, whatever. So it will be interesting. I bet Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce were, on a day where you're going to take alums out to dinner that night and celebrate another win and try to get closer to asking for money or ask for money, you had to deal with that nonsense. Holy smoke. And like I said, Blake, somebody affiliated with a 247 Sports or Sports Talk Radio or just the Fan with 309 Twitter followers, whatever.
Yeah.
But dude, when you're the official account of Ole Miss foot, and you link Liberty's email in there,
that's the worst part. Like you put another
unprofessional.
You put another school's email account in there, and obviously we all understand it's the reference to the Hugh Freeze tweet that kind of kicked off this whole thing,
right?
So many years ago.
It was after the 2013 recruiting class or whatever, when he landed the top 5 or top 10 class, and he sent out that tweet about not slandering the men, and if you have anything that we've done,
Ole Miss compliance.
Yeah, and then of course they got inundated with emails. But anyway,
and so it's a hilarious joke if like the Ole Miss message board Twitter account, like you said, right, like the 247 Spirit account or whatever, like
whatever
does
they
that.
are now.
Yeah, that would have been funnier. It would have still been a little low blow, but it would have been funny. When you do it as the official account, it's a no bueno.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad on an otherwise bright day for Ole Miss football.
All right, Mississippi State loses in a heartbreaker, 31-28. This is just a team that is a nice team. They're getting a little bit better. It's, incrementally. They like to start off slow at times. You got down 10-0 against Kentucky. You can sometimes do that, especially the way that Kentucky doesn't really have an offense and you were at home. You do that, you get down 10-0 against Kendall Briles, who I thought had a great game plan considering how limited Arkansas is on offense, with a young QB who's still not polished and so on. But when you get down 10-0 on the road, and you just make it that much difficult for yourself all day long, and you don't have anybody special on offense, in other words, like a wide receiver that defense did you see what the Mississippi State defense was doing as far as Treylon Burks? I mean, it was obvious they were like, okay, where is he? We've spent a lot. We have invested an enormous amount of time and effort in making sure that we know where he is at all times. Arkansas didn't have to do that to Mississippi State. I mean, you just got a bunch of guys, again, Mekhi Polk, Austin Williams, Malik Heath, Jaden Wally, whatever, Tulu Marks, Dylan. I mean, these are nice players who at times can make, they're nice SEC players. Now, Ra Thomas may emerge. He is a true freshman that's doing some things that you haven't had happen to you in Starkville in a while. Of course, if you did have a receiver in Starkville, you didn't use him.
You didn't know you had him.
You've had some guys over the years, but they were not, used. I mean, Sherrill had some really, I'm talking, take out Molds. Sherrill had some other players that were very, very talented. You just didn't use them. But Ra Thomas, because of his size, stature, looks like, well, if I want to go speed, but maybe. But just his ability to catch the ball and get open. He may be your guy in the next year or so. Or you got to go find a WR1. But Arkansas had one. And when all things are even, unless there's a quarterback deal going on, and again, Will Rogers is playing really good football, and he's going to be so good. But Treylon Burks was a handful, man. That guy at 6'3", 225 can make things happen. And then the flip side is when you were going against Kendall Briles, you had no push on the D-line. None. No push on the edge, no push on in the interior. You're used to having Danico Autry, Pernell McPhee, Fletcher Cox, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, Preston Smith. I mean, you've gone through all these players that had the ability to get off blocks and disrupt the pocket. KJ Jefferson, who's still a major work in progress, would literally take the snap, and he had a good 3 seconds. He could have taken a bite of nachos, picked the ball back up, and thrown it where he wanted it. And it's up to your staff to go get some guys. But right now you don't have any. So that's where you are. We'll get into Dan Mullen, who fired Todd Grantham, defensive coordinator, and John Hevesy, his offensive line coach. There's more coming, by the way. And they took a big L to the mighty South Carolina Gamecocks. Man, you made South Carolina and Shane Beamer look like Sean Payton when he had Drew Brees. Live in the BankPlus Studio. SEC Insider Hit coming up next. The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Your golf game starts with Edwin Watts Golf Shop.
Come on.
Everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
Yeah. Good morning. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice. In the great state of Mississippi, we are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. That caller line, if you'd like to weigh in, 601-707-3750. Brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Ole Miss with the dub over Liberty. And they cover if you got it at the right number, which you should have. And then Mississippi State loses and covers. It's 5.5 for most of the week, depending on what book you were on. Obviously, there's 90,000 of them out there. But Mississippi State, heartbreaking loss. Would you have put the second string place kicker in at that time and moment? Easy for me to ask on a max effort Monday, I know, right? Armchair QBing it here. But would you have made that switch after Ruiz botched 2 field goals? He's been hurt this year, but been a pretty good field goal kicker. It's a tough loss, man. I mean, it just takes you into, it's slim to none that you beat Auburn on the road, right? And so a winnable game with Tennessee State and Ole Miss at home, for Hail State, that's a tough one. But Blake, there's nothing electric on either side of the ball. And you need a wide receiver one and just really one player on defense. And maybe that's easier said than done. It is interesting, the guy that's, under an enormous amount of heat and fire, that while Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State, you had Danico Autry, you had Pernell McPhee, you had Preston Smith, you had Fletcher Cox, you had Chris Jones, you had Jeffrey Simmons, and I missed some edge rushers.
Yeah.
Up front, you're more Central Florida than,
Shots
what
fired.
you need to be. And there's just no push on the D-line. Nobody's special in that front seven that can really give the offense a hard time and make them work, so to speak. And so there's no pressure coming from the edge. And there's no pressure coming from the interior. And, hey, Kendall Briles had a offensive coordinator for Arkansas, had a great game plan. And here's what it came down to on Saturday. It was in Arkansas. Their crowd was into it.
Yep.
They had the best player on the field in Treylon Burks, yeah. And they had the best 2 coordinators in the stadium. They did. Now, I like Leach and Arnett, but Kendall Briles and Barry Odom are ridiculous. And look, this Sam Pittman thing is amazing. And once they leave, you would think the ship's going to sail because you don't hire that 2A guys again. Doesn't happen. But as long as they're there, they give Arkansas a chance to win games games like that.
Yeah.
And Kendall, I thought, really worked I thought Kendall Briles really worked the Mississippi State defense. He knew exactly where he wanted to go. He knew what they could do and couldn't do, and that's a credit to an excellent coach. He's known as an A offensive coordinator and play caller, and he did enough. And look, their roster's limited. That's an understatement. Their roster's limited. They just had a special explosive player, Blake, that even though you may look at and say, well, Bo, he didn't just have a crazy, unbelievable game. Okay, you could say that. But here's the deal, Blake. It was the fact that the Mississippi State defense was so focused and invested on what he was doing.
Well, that, and when you can't disrupt the quarterback's pocket, then whether it's a handoff or a pass play, when you can't disrupt that pocket, everything else becomes so much easier because you're on time, everything's in rhythm. I mean, KJ Jefferson, even though he didn't throw the ball a ton, every time he dropped back, he was in rhythm because he wasn't being disturbed.
And he had all day.
Yeah, every read option, they were in rhythm because nobody was at the mesh point to even challenge the read option.
Yeah.
You know? So it just, when you can operate off that baseline of stability, it makes running your offense, which they stalled out multiple times and had to kick. I mean, they kicked a 51-yarder and a 48-yarder and a 46-yarder.
Their field goal kicker was the MVP along with Treylon Burks and Kendall Browse.
Yeah, I mean, so your defense was able to bend but don't break at times in a way that was successful, but Arkansas just had it was more them not completing their offense than you making a big stop, right?
Yeah. Let's drop some Mike Leach audio on some. Any of y'all want to try out for kicking at the college level? If you have any eligibility left. This was Mike Leach after the game on kicking tryouts.
Yeah, there's an open tryout, and you can announce this. There's an open tryout on our campus for kickers. You know, anybody that wants to kick or walk on and kick at Mississippi State, you know, we'll hold the tryout anytime you can get over there to our building, providing you're cleared by the NC2A.
I don't know what my favorite part of that is. Just the whole thing, or the fact that he called it the NC2A.
Yeah, I love that. Old school, baby. I mean, how many guys would you let come try out? It'd be open invitation, right? Or do you go back to Reese because he's hurt and you say, look, we have faith in you, even though that's probably not believable at this point?
You know, I mean, pulling him to put who is the other dude? I don't even know his name.
McCord.
Okay.
Unless he was hurt, unless Reese came to you and said, look, I tweaked it trying to kick that last kick, but he kicked PATs. So I don't know. It's very odd to pull him right there.
Oh, some people are texting on the Ag Up Equipment text line, 601-885-3776. That's your agup.com, Ag Up Equipment text line, brought to you by John Deere Tractor. And manage your land with the John Deere Tractor from Ag Up Equipment. People are talking about the officials. You know what? I mean, I get that there were some bad calls. You got to overcome those. They're bad calls every week in Blake, SEC and NFL for that matter. Now, so do you think that Leach will really get a kicker on the team in the next 2 weeks?
Let me be completely honest with you. Isn't there a good chance there's someone on campus who can kick a football better than what we saw Saturday? There's so many athletes nowadays that come out of nowhere. I mean, Mississippi State had a guy that was an engineering major that came on and kicked great for a season until he hurt himself again.
And Mike Leach did this years ago at Texas Tech, right? Oh. You saw that article floating around?
Gus Malzahn said this. Not Gus Malzahn. Gene Chizik, sorry. Wrong Auburn fired coach. Gene Chizik said on SEC Network Saturday night that he's held open tryouts at kicker before. That this is not an uncommon practice. It's happened before. Right. It's just much more public when an SEC head coach yells it at a press conference right after his team missed 3 field goals.
It's because that SEC coach does not care, right?
No, doesn't care at all.
At all.
No.
He's got a ton of money. He's going to say whatever he wants. I understand that makes some people uncomfortable in Starkville, but he doesn't care at all.
I think there's got to be somebody around that you can get, that can kick a football that's enrolled in classes. Now, whether or not they show up for a tryout, whole different story. But, I mean, we've seen other schools bringing soccer players before and it work out and things like that. So, I mean, it was bad. You can't miss field goals. It's now cost you a couple games. You can't be missing field goals,
Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Dan Mullen has fired Todd Grantham.
Makes sense.
Defensive coordinator. And his friend that's been with him for 20 years, offensive line coach at Florida, John Hevesy, have both been let go at Florida. There will be more.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, it could get to 8 out of the 10 full-time assistants. Now, maybe not that. Yeah. I was looking at their coaches over the weekend, and I think it could get to 7 or 8. I think Brewster survives because of his recruiting, and maybe Wesley McGriff, because of his recruiting. That's kind of the way that I see it right now. Dan's in a bad spot, though. This went from you're winning big. You win 21 games in your first year. Last year, you go to the SEC championship game. Can you believe that? They won 21 games and in the first 2 years. And then they go to the SEC championship game in year 3. And now they've got Samford this weekend. And now I don't think Mullen's going anywhere for another year. But the bottom line is Todd Grantham's gone. John Hevesy's gone. You would think 5 to 7 more are gone. And we'll see how it looks at Florida. They have Samford, Missouri, and Florida State.
They could lose Florida State easy.
I think they could lose to just about anybody D1 right now. I mean, they just lost to South Carolina,
dude,
by 23 points.
You talking about Shane Beamer?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, South Carolina is a terrible.
Yeah,
they're not a good football team. They're awful on offense, and Florida made them look like Sean Payton and Drew Brees at the New Orleans Saints, or Matt Corral and Ole Miss when they're rolling. Speaking of, Ole Miss will host game day this weekend, and the Texas A&M Aggies for a night game. Both the two teams with 2 losses. A&M's coming off a very physical game against Auburn. They did enough to win. And Ole Miss went through the motions against Liberty, which I don't blame them. We see this pretty much every weekend. I mean, Bama went through the motions against LSU. Who thought that would be a 20-14 game where Bama looked totally checked out.
Ran for 7 yards.
It's unbelievable that Bama, at the running back position, when we said early in the year that, when your best guy is Brian Robinson, and I mean, he's a good player in the grand scheme of things, but nothing special. That's pretty unbelievable that an LSU team dressing out 50-something players that has nothing to play for actually was in the. And look, Ogeron went for it on 4th down late in the game. They were inside the 10-yard line. Can you imagine if I don't think anybody in the stadium thought he was going to make it or that they were going to be capable of getting what they wanted out of that. But my goodness. Now, if he kicks the field goal there, I guess we could play that all day long, right? And it's 2017 and they got the ball back. Who knows? But that was kind of a wild one, too.
But, Bo, if I told you Mike Leach's team ran 26 times for 6 yards, you'd go, that makes sense. But then if I said if it was Alabama that ran 26 times for 6 yards against an LSU team that's depleted, walking on thin ice with a dead coach, I mean, that's it. 26 carries for 6 yards and you're Alabama? Have they done that in the last 120 years?
Probably not. Probably not. All right, let's switch gears here. I want to get back into what I talked about earlier, and that's that. And Ole Miss is in the same boat. They just have Matt Corral. So neither team on the defensive side of the football has a special player. And really, neither team on the offensive side of the football has a special player other than Matt Corral. Now, again, Will Rogers is going to be super, and he's already playing good football. And kind of everything's on him. You know, Will was really good on Saturday. He's got to be great. That's where you are. You have a bunch of solid players out at receiver. You have a bunch of solid players on defense. You know, you couldn't turn Arkansas over. And when you have a bunch of solid, well, you're going to take a loss like that. It's just part of it. And you can blame the officials or whatever, but there just wasn't anything to really scare Arkansas on defense. Now, I will give the air raid this. That boy says Sam Williams is going to be a first-round draft pick for what? The Canadian Football League?
Oh! Well, you got to harm that man. Sam Williams, innocent bystander.
Sam Williams is not a... Yeah. All right. But, yeah, let me say that again. There's no one special on the Ole Miss defense. There's no one special on the Mississippi State defense. That's hard to do in the Sun Belt. It really is. I mean, usually you find a guy that's really good somewhere in the front seven. And evidently that's just not happening. So we'll see how it looks going forward. As far as recruiting, if Ole Miss didn't have Matt Corral, they'd be ordinary like, you know, MSU and some of these other teams. They've got a freaky player who, oh, by the way, it's hard to judge this, Blake, because Liberty didn't have any talent. But even with them not having any talent and their offensive line not able to block Ole Miss's front 4 or 7 or however many you want to say they were sending, depending on the play, it looks to me like Malik Willis with Liberty is still a major work in progress.
Yes.
And that Matt Corral is, and again, I know he had more talent on Saturday, so saying that they went head-to-head is really not the case. But Matt Corral is just so much more refined and advanced than Malik Willis.
I mean, is that overly shocking to you, though?
No, I didn't understand why he was where he was in the late spring and summer.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of raw potential. You can see the talent there. You can see what could be exciting. I don't think it's hard. You know, Freeze has always had success offensively, but if you go back and look at his quarterbacks, he's never turned a quarterback into a polished NFL guy.
No, I mean,
so that's kind of a different.
Bo Wallace was a really good college player.
Yeah.
Chad, I guess there could be a lot of what might have been
if he doesn't tear his ACL
with Chad Kelly, or if he just had if he was a grown up,
yeah,
you know, and more mature. Chad Kelly had a lot of talent,
but he never polished it up. Like again,
no,
so
and I don't know if he was ever, even without getting in trouble, I don't know if he was ever going to be able to go through the reads and progressions. And maybe he would have, but I'm not sure. Even though he was phenomenal on the college level because of his athleticism and his arm. And I get that he could throw the ball 70 yards, and that's great. But that doesn't mean that you can play in the NFL.
So could Jamarcus Russell.
So you're right. But also, I don't know how fair that is, Blake. I mean, there's only so many NFL-worthy QBs.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of wonderful coaches that have coached a long time in college football that haven't necessarily delivered us a really good NFL QB.
I guess to my point, I'm not surprised that Corral's a little more polished given what I've seen Kiffin do at the quarterback position over the last 5-6 years than maybe Freeze runs a great offense.
Yeah.
But it's not that it's not an offense that allows your quarterback maybe to develop the NFL progressions.
Yeah.
Because it's so open and so scheme-driven.
No, I mean, when Chad Kelly was throwing at times, Laquan Treadwell was wide open. Attaboy,
or you're throwing these screens
Evan
that are
Ingram.
so simple. Yeah. It's kind of like what Will Rogers
and then
to
all
an
of a
extent
sudden,
does, too.
everybody's blanketed at the NFL, and your window is 6 by 6 inches.
It's what Tua is dealing with on
Right.
a daily basis of, hey, that guy's NFL open, not Alabama open, right?
Right. Boy, did I get fooled on that a couple years ago.
You did. You were in on the Tua
I walked
train.
down the sideline, and I did not put 2 and 2 together when I saw him dismantle Mississippi State in Starkville before Leo Lewis hit him and he was knocked out of the game. I should have taken into account, one, that he had 10 seconds to throw it and that there wasn't a DB within sight of Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith or any of the other Ruggs or any of the other wide receivers at Alabama. And that was my bad.
We all get fooled.
Dude, he was awesome, but there wasn't a DB within 6 yards of any of the Alabama wide receivers.
Correct.
And that offensive line at that time at Bama
was dominant.
Oh,
dominant.
Man.
And they had a good run game. I mean, everything was running smoothly. So
that's true.
And their defense was better.
Yeah.
All right, can I switch gears for you a little break?
Oh, and by the way, Georgia has oversigned more than any other SEC team in the league the last 4 years. And Alabama has stopped oversigning at the level that they were. And what has happened? There's been a flip.
And Georgia's catching up?
Not catching up.
Caught up.
I mean, this year, it looks like there's a little bit of a gap. Mississippi State has woefully undersigned the last 4 years. And you have to max out every single class. Look for 2 teams. I want y'all to look for 2 teams. And I know one screwed up early in the year, but kind of where they are now. Georgia and A&M have both signed over 100 players the last 4 years. They are over-signing like crazy because attrition, lose players, ankles, knees, and so on. Mississippi State is at the bottom of the SEC in signing. Yeah. There's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. And you better sign the full allotment of 25-ish players every year. Even if they're 86, 87 rated, mid to high 3 stars, you've got to have guys on your roster. Georgia has oversigned more than anybody in the league. It was Bama for years. And Nick, for whatever reason, has either missed out on signing day when they go against about 3 teams and haven't been able to, I guess, fill that void. But when you look at the oversigning of Kirby Smart and Jimbo, it'll jump out at you and this is playing into Georgia's favor as we head down the stretch. Who does
Georgia's season is done.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Charleston Southern and at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's over. Georgia's season, they're waiting for the SEC title game.
That is incredible, Blake.
Well, it always, if you
look at this, this is who they played down the stretch. A bad Florida team. They just played Missouri. They play at Tennessee, Charleston Southern, at Georgia Tech.
Correct. The end of their season is always great.
The difference between the West and the East, is just wow. And I don't know how many more assistants Dan Mullen will fire, but
real question is how many will he take with him when he leaves?
What? Oh, I think Mullen survives. What do you think?
Surviving and taking another job are different questions, right?
How is he going to get another job?
College football's weird.
I mean, I think don't get me wrong, there's only so much top-end talent in coaching. And Scott Strickland does not, you don't want to start over. You don't want to start over at Ole Miss. You don't want to start over at Mississippi State, Arkansas, whatever. The thought of flipping the building of 40 to 50 coaches and administrators and all that, you don't want to do. The show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent.